coming up on show 834. BMW is set to unveil their all-electric iX3 next week. Stick around and I'll give you the details. Plus on the podcast today, where in the world has the most EVs per capita? How close is Elon Musk to getting his next big payday? And let's talk about going rallycross racing in an EV. Well, those stories and many more coming up on the podcast today. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. This is the edition for what happened on Thursday, 9th of June. My name is Martyn Lee, going through every EV story, so you don't have to. Okay, so where in the world has the most EVs? I went there a little while ago. Oslo, Norway's capital, is the world leader in terms of EVs per capita, along with the country's second largest city, Bergen. I should point out, actually, I didn't go to Oslo recently. I went to Bergen. I did a tour of the fjords, and my wife and I, pre-baby, did a week or 10 days or so seeing Norway. Stunning country, and yes, it's true, a ton of EVs. It comes as no surprise since Norway's been leading the way in EV adoption, and Oslo, the capital, has set itself an ambitious target to be very near zero emissions in just 10 years' time in 2030, says InsideEVs. Well, in recent months, half of all new car sales have been pure electric, another 25% have been plug-ins, 75% of new car sales recently have been, some months, with a plug socket. Currently around 18% of all passenger cars operating in Oslo are fully electric. And if you wonder what the difference is between those two numbers I gave you, half of all new cars sold are battery electric. But of course, how many new cars are sold is vastly different to the fleet that's on the road, and those cars need to get replaced in time, which is why it's almost 1 in 5 are EVs. 9% are plug-in hybrids and 5% are regular hybrids. And this shift isn't only in the passenger car segment. Electric vans have gone up in popularity too. 23% of all new vans bought in Q1 are full electric in Norway. Congratulations there for setting some ambitious emissions targets a long time ago and doing everything they had to do to actually follow through on what they said they would do. Let's talk about Elon Musk. And he could be in line for a mega payday just after he got a mega payday. Elon Musk's pay package, which was approved by the shareholders a couple of years ago, doesn't pay him any salary or any cash bonuses. Instead, his new deal lays out a plan that, if he hits all the targets, and if he does, it would make Tesla just wildly successful, would give him about 20 million stock options over the course of 10 years in 12 equal blocks. There's 12 equal blocks of 1.7 million stocks. Well, options on the stocks. As long as the company hits a series of operational and market value goals, according to CNN. Well, if you haven't noticed, Tesla's share price has continued to climb steadily, rising more than 70% since Elon received his previous options grant. Now, that gives Tesla a current market value, last time I looked, it's probably higher now, of about $260 billion US, and that's a trailing 6-month average of almost 140. Now, why is that important? Because Tesla shares need only stay at this level for the next 2 weeks, and he'll get to that 6-month average of 150 billion, and when he does, he gets his next set of stock options, and that's about a $1.8 billion payday. But be careful how you treat that story. They're not giving him the money. He's actually got to buy those stocks at obviously the vastly reduced price. He gets them at a steep discount. He hasn't exercised any of his options yet. I did smile recently. Elon has often said how he's cash poor, as in any money he had, he put his own personal money into Tesla, and he had some properties. And I did smile recently when around the time his baby was born, and he said, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my worldly possessions. We're just going to live simply. We're going to sell all our houses. I'm going to sell 6 of my houses in Los Angeles and get rid of my worldly possessions. And I kind of smiled thinking, well, yeah, you need the money. He needs cash. Elon is obviously incredibly wealthy, but actually probably couldn't write you a check in terms of what's in his bank account compared to some billionaires. And obviously we're talking about stratospheric amounts of money here. And so it always helps to add a little bit of liquidity to the old bank account, doesn't it? So busy selling his houses for tens of millions, and I'm sure that when he's got a few bob together, he might even exercise some of those options that he's entitled to and could well be entitled to another 1.8 billions worth if they stay the course. Now Elon is also saying, what's the time? Oh, look at that, it's around summertime. It's the it's the 9th of July. It must be time for Elon to start talking about how they're very close to fully autonomous vehicles. Of course, I hesitated to make that joke with tongue firmly in cheek in case any Tesla superfan takes me seriously, but even the most ardent of Tesla fan who sees them as doing no wrong must admit he does pretty much annually say, oh yeah, we're close with full self-driving. Yeah, the car's going to drive itself from Los Angeles to New York. Don't you worry about that. When's that? Oh yeah, coming soon. They make many promises, and I would say 9 times out of 10 they follow through. It may not always be on a time scale, which people assume, but they always deliver. Well, they now say, or Elon now says, that Tesla are very close to developing fully autonomous vehicles and could work out the basics of the technology as soon as this year. Okay. He said in a pre-recorded video played during a conference in Shanghai, and according to Bloomberg, Elon reiterated that the electric vehicle maker has solved most of the essential challenges toward achieving level 5 autonomy, a fully self-driven car that needs no human behind the wheel. Tesla and SpaceX's boss was reaffirming the goal that he first expressed last year in terms of full autonomous cars, and you know what? I'm an idiot on a podcast. Who am I to compare myself to people that build big companies and have super brains, but they're nowhere near. That absolutely no company is anywhere near you getting inside your car by the end of the year and say, take me to get some Chinese food. There being no steering wheel at all, and that car doing that completely autonomously. It's very hard to criticize things like this, and people who don't listen to the words that I'm saying will then think I'm having a go at those autopilot features. Look, Tesla's driver assist functions, let's call them that, they're whatever it is, like level 2.5, is brilliant, and it's some of the best out there. And you know what? It means you get to your destination less tired, and it's very, very clever, and it's getting better all the time. Do you need to stay completely aware? Yes. Are there so many cases of people saying, if I wasn't aware, that would have just steered me into a concrete barrier? Or actually, there's been very sad cases where things have gone wrong. Now, look, that's not to criticise where they are. I'm just saying, from my perspective of, really knowing nothing at all, you are not, by the end of this year, going to be getting in any car in the world and it taking you wherever you want to go. All right, let's move on. And Tesla is forging ahead with their battery investor day, or their sort of combined announcement date, September. It was 15th. Are they moving that? I've heard they're moving it. Anyway. Over the years, Tesla's been hard at work improving their batteries, and as they head towards the anticipated Battery Day event, it's becoming more and more clear that Tesla want to make their own cells, and they've been acquiring companies to help them be better at actually making them. I'm sure they know how to do it, but they've been buying companies that are, sort of experts in production, a bit like Groman was when they bought Tesla Groman Engineering. Now, this is interesting because according to Teslarati, not everyone totally agrees with Tesla being a leader in the field. If you ask Audi's CEO, Markus Duesmann, in a recent talk with the German magazine Focus.de, the CEO of Audi said he doesn't see Tesla being ahead in lithium-ion battery tech at all. And with this, it would not be long before Germany's automakers catch up. We are catching up with 7-mile boots, is the quote. And again, maybe this has been lost a little bit in translation. He said, interestingly enough, it'll only be a matter of time before Tesla manages to capitalize on Germans making their cars. Of course, they're making their Berlin Gigafactory and right on the doorstep of the German car industry. I do wish that very, very senior, important people wouldn't say these kind of things. He may well think he knows what Tesla is up to, but ultimately, he doesn't know what Tesla has in their locker, and vice versa. Tesla probably has a good idea of what Audi's working on, where they buy their batteries and cells from, but ultimately, they don't know what's going on in Audi R&D labs, and I just wish that really important people like this wouldn't go on the record and say that Tesla isn't ahead in lithium-ion battery tech. Because they might be, and it makes you look a little bit silly if it comes out on Tesla Battery Investor Day with, just something that is revolutionary, very innovative, next generation. Look, he didn't need to say that because, in hindsight, it might not have been the best thing to say. But there we go. Making a comment on a competitor is always a risk, and who knows why people say these things. And obviously, it's an article that's been translated from German. So we always need to say, well, maybe that wasn't done. Maybe we got the wrong end of the stick with this. But if he genuinely believes that they're not ahead, well, then I'm sure he won't be watching the live stream on Battery Day with any sort of concern. Let's talk about BMW next. And their hotly anticipated iX3 is being unveiled next week, July 14th, 10 a.m. Central European time. The car maker is going to take the covers off their EV and be the first time the public, even the press really, has seen the car for real, according to Car Scoops and the Next Web. The iX3 has a single rear-mounted electric motor, 282 brake horsepower. Battery's not that big, 74 kilowatt hours, and doing about 273 miles. Earlier last month, BMW announced it had already started production in China, where all the iX3s will be made, and customer deliveries by the end of the year. Sadly, this one not coming to the US market. Some people saying BMW not selling the iX3 in the US because the EPA rating would be so low for it, it wouldn't be able to compete with the Tesla Model Y. I don't know if that's true or not. How many miles do you really need? Like 250, 220, 250, 300? It's all nice, isn't it? And so, at what point would it just be very useful to have for BMW a fully electric iX3 in their locker, so that when somebody comes in and their 3-year lease is up on their X3 and they go, they've had the last 3 cars, they've had all BMWs, they're just going to renew the lease on a new car, and then one of them's electric. And the dealer could say, do you want to try this all electric one? And maybe somebody would shift over to electric just because they've always driven X3s and now they like the electric S3. That obviously can't happen now in the US because the car just ain't going to be sold there. That's a real shame, but I do understand they don't want to look bad if they suspect the EPA rating would be a little bit low. And we can see what happened with Porsche. All the real-world tests on the Taycan show it goes much, much further than the EPA number, but when that number came out, the media just gave them a kicking without actually doing their own range tests themselves. Then when good EV journalists came out and said, well, I've driven it and it's done loads more miles than it's meant to, well, that's the kind of investigative stuff that we need to do. So maybe BMW just, I don't know, for whatever reasons, making that call. Let's talk about going racing in electric cars. An electric car will race in rallycross for the first time this weekend, as a former World Rally driver Manfred Stoll is set to compete in an electric Ford Fiesta at the Hungarian Rallycross Championship event, says motorsport.com. Well, Stoll will compete at the Kakuks circuit in a Fiesta Elect RX. I think is how I'd say it. It's made by his starred research and development firm, and it's the kind of car that will run in the World Rallycross Championships Project E electric support series from this year. With the Fiesta's electric kit making about 613 horsepower, the event will give a clear indication of the electric version of rallycross cars versus the conventional 2-litre turbocharged 600 horsepower rallycross supercars. Now, while Project E, the series, will be a standalone single powertrain category within the World Rallycross structure, World Rallycross will indeed be adopting electric cars into their top category in 2022, with EVs pitched against the existing fossil cars. And we know what's going to win. because EVs are better. And let's talk about Nissan next. Nissan's vehicle-to-grid technology has arrived down under in Australia, with a government trial called Realising Electric Vehicle Services. Nissan is preparing to launch vehicle-to-grid technology to the market in Australia, writes electrive.com. Well, the REVs project, couldn't make it up, could you? An all-electric project called REVs. Yeah, couldn't make it up. An electric car doesn't rev. I suppose it has rotations. Has RPM, doesn't it, in the motor? Doesn't rev, though. Anyway, the REVs project will see 51 Nissan Leafs deployed by the Australian Capital Territory ahead of the commercial rollout planned by Nissan. The ACT government will operate 50 Leaf cars on a trial capacity using their batteries to stabilise the electric grid. Well, Ford has introduced a new automatic electric mode for their Transit, the Ford Transit. It's a van, and they've got a plug-in version of it, and it uses geofencing to ensure that the plug-in bit of the van only operates when it's driving within zero-emission cities, says the website Commercial Fleet. Using live location data, the new Ford Transit Custom, the plug-in hybrid version automatically switches to electric drive only when it enters a predefined area like a congestion zone or a low-emission zone. Vehicle operators can also create custom zones, green zones, to encourage low-emission driving around schools and playgrounds and warehouses if they want to. Super interesting technology, a good solution that technology provides, but I wonder whether the regulators will get ahead of this technology. I mean, we've seen recently in the UK this autumn we're getting green number plates for EVs. And the government have said EVs only. If it burns anything, doesn't get a green number plate. So if it's a plug-in hybrid, if it's a range extender, doesn't get the green number plate. Now, they haven't announced what the green plates get you. It would be too much to ask the politicians to get that joined up. But imagine if at some point in the future, low emission zones only allow green stickers or green plates in them. You can have all the technology you want in plug-in hybrid cars to turn off the engine when it gets inside the zone. If they're not allowed to go in there, they're not allowed to go in there. So I do look at this as interesting technology, but we'll see what kind of legislation gets passed where it could make it all redundant, and anything which burns anything may well be banned. And finally, electric scooters. You never thought you wanted to see electric scooters racing? Well, you're going to get them anyway. A professional race series. The Electric Scooter Championship, the ESC, is coming, according to Autoblog, in 2021. It's going to be happening in major cities, and it's going to be, they say, on scooters that can do 100 kilometers an hour. That's 60 miles an hour on a scooter? What? Accelerates faster than a road car, and yes, you'll have to be a professional. I don't know what. I mean, what qualifies you to do 100 kilometers an hour on a scooter? Snowboarder or extreme sports fanatic or something. Anyway, on a scooter? Good luck. Hey, thank you for listening today. If you want to email the show, you can do that. hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, you can get all 833 previous shows online on the blog, evnewsdaily.com, if you particularly want to. Thank you out to our Patreon supporters for funding the archive and all the new shows as well. Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for Clean Tech Talent, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, and now NationalCarCharging.com and AlohaCharge.com. Have a wonderful day. Catch you tomorrow, and remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.